Red Arremer II is a strange artifact, a sequel to a spin-off of a beloved game, where we have a bad port of that original game on the Famicom, but not the first Red Arremer game itself. Red Arremer is the name of that flying devil guy from the Famicom series. You know, the guy at the end of the first half of the first stage? The one who could be the star feature in a video titled The 10 Worst Video Game Enemies? I have the impression that Capcom really didn't know what to do with the Famicom series. It's not that the games weren't hits. All 4 games based on it at this point had done very well. But they decided to try something different with Red Arremer for the Game Boy, placing the enemy that everybody knew as the star of his own game, and it was one of the best early Game Boy games. And for some reason, Capcom decided that the sequel had to be on the Famicom. The game is basically a prequel to the Famicom series. The Red Arremer is a young demon in training, and after completing practice one day, he finds that his demon village has been destroyed by a mysterious black light. That puts him on a quest for vengeance. There are 2 different game modes in Red Arremer 2. The first is a simple RPG-style overhead view. Here you explore the area, talk to people, and possibly uncover some useful souls. When it's time for action, which is always initiated because you entered a terrain feature, or because you've spoken to an enemy, it switches to a side-scrolling view. This is the real heart of the game, and the B button attacks while the A button jumps. But if you hit A again while you're in the air, then Red stops his descent and hovers around. There's a meter at the bottom of the screen indicating how long he can hover for. The Red Arremer can also attach himself to walls. All you have to do is push into the wall. You can jump straight up them, and you can even jump out and then hover back. You've got a lot of flexibility in your movement in Red Arremer 2, and one trick that you'll have to use a lot is dropping off a ledge, pushing back to attach to the wall that you are on, then making a long jump out from there, and hovering as you descend in order to maximize the distance you can travel. Clearing a stage will often give you some kind of permanent upgrade, and the game goes in a cycle where you clear a stage, get that upgrade, then use that upgrade to beat the next stage, which gives you another upgrade, and so on. You can upgrade your jump, which will let you get higher, your wings, which will let you hover longer, or get weapons that have special abilities, like smashing these rocks. To switch which magical attack you're using, just hit start and you'll see a bar of what you can do. You also have hearts, which represent your life, and the maximum amount of these can be permanently upgraded as well. You're given 3 lives in Red Arremer 2, and if you run out of lives in a stage, then you go back to your previous save point. And those are pretty few and far between. In some towns, not many of them, there will be a person you can talk to who will give you a number, and that's your password for the game. Unfortunately, you might have to wander through a large chunk of the overhead view, plus multiple side-scrolling stages, to get back to where you were. You can recover your extra lives, and you'll either find these on stages, or you can buy extra lives back to your maximum of 3 by bringing souls to the appropriate people in towns. Souls are the jars that you'll find scattered around, and it's common for those jars to have more than 1 soul in it. The other type of pickup that you'll find on stages are hearts, which will restore a bit of your health. The level design in Red Arremer 2 is generally pretty good, but they do have quite a few places where you essentially have to make a blind jump. Since between your jump distance and your hover, you can go a lot further than the screen. And annoyingly, enemies respawn if you move a short distance away and then go back. So if you need to retry a tricky jump, then you're going to have to fight your way back through it again. In Japan, Red Arremer 2 has a reputation as one of the great Famicom games. But because it is a 1992 Famicom release, it sold very poorly, and that's made copies a bit hard to find. It doesn't rank among the more expensive Famicom games, but you don't see copies come up too often. Red Arremer 2 was eventually remade for the Game Boy, taking the series back to its home system. And a sequel was eventually released for the Super Famicom, though that one dropped the Red Arremer title altogether, instead going with Demon's Blazon as the title. Beyond that, Capcom really kept away from the Makaimura series for a long time. I don't think I'd put Red Arremer II in the top tier of Famicom games. The overhead view stuff is kind of unnecessary and clunky, and there's a few rough edges on those side-scrolling stages. But it's still a really good game. It's also a pretty long one. If you don't know exactly what you're doing and where you're going, it will take you a while to play through it. And thanks to having a complex movement system, it's the kind of game that rewards mastery. It feels cool when you can pull off some fancy flying. After playing it a bit for this recording, I was tempted to go back and play through the whole Red Arremer series. They're all a lot of fun. Of course, you don't have to play the whole series. You could jump in right here and have a good time.